Yes, I am live. Good afternoon, everyone. I think, yeah, it showed me I am live. So, yes, it is live. Happy Thursday to everyone. I hope you weren't so confused about yesterday's lecture. So, how are you, everyone, today? Let me see the live chat. Again, since it's 20-second delay, I can totally understand it. Okay, fine. So we have about 8 viewers today. That's great. That shows your passion towards learning a new thing. So let me give you a small introduction about today's topic, which is all about observing users' interactions. At least that is what you have seen on the thumbnail. So when a user clicks on a particular area, or when a user hovers on a particular area, or when he types something on the keyboard, or when he switches on the tabs, you have seen tabs in browser, right? You have multiple tabs. Whenever he switches on a tab from one tab to another, you can observe those interactions and then behave accordingly. And that is exactly why before 90s JavaScript was introduced. That was the sole purpose of the language. You not only can write your program as a standalone language, but also can control what users do. You can show your output based on what users interact. And that was a lot easier when it comes to server side form submissions. Whenever you are like having a data which needs to be sent from your browser all the way up to the backend database, this sort of user interaction was super helpful back in 90s, I'm saying. So that is why this language itself has existed, and now it has boomed, as you could have all known. That is an introduction to what our topic is. To be even more technical, we are going to learn about listening to certain events and how do we manipulate form submissions, or how do we prevent any default events and inject our own code or something. So that is for today. Let me just see the live chat once again and let's start our session. Morning, Chandan. How are you? It's been a long time, right? It's been 2 to 3 days since I saw you. All right, great. So let me just share my screen and start my session without any delay. Since I could see the repeated users who's coming to my live stream, I don't need any sorts of introduction here. That's why. Let me make it as a full screen. Oh, it was already in full screen. I always get confused because of the floating meeting controls which is present in my Zoom thing. All right. So the topics for today is the introduction to events. All right. Let's see what are all the events that can be handled. Spoiler alert, there are many. There are literally tons of events. Yeah. The next thing is to listen to an event. Listen to an event. The third thing is controlling form submissions. All right. But to learn all these things, you need to understand a critical JavaScript fundamental concept called as callbacks. Because you will not see this concept in most of the other languages. It is specific to JavaScript. So I thought of teaching you this first, and then I'll move ahead with all these concepts. Because listening to an event and controlling form submissions require some sort of callbacks. So let us discuss what a callback is essentially, right? Callbacks are something which accepts a function. I repeat, a function as an argument to a function itself. So let's say we have a normal function called add. Normally what we will do, we will receive a number 1, right? And we receive a number 2 and followed by the curly braces. But what if these parameters are now functions? Instead of just normal data types, what if these values are functions? At that case, your callback will start working. Let me put it in a layman term related phrase. A callback is something which will execute after an operation is performed. So let's say you're going out of the the window or something. Whenever your mouse moves out of the window, some sort of interaction should happen, right? If you want to have a trigger sort of thing, you will use this callback strategy. So I'll repeat, callback is something where you will trigger in function whenever a operation is performed. It may be a click operation, it may be a typing operation, it may be a forward operation, it may be anything. But when that operation occurs, your function will be triggered automatically, and that is called as callbacks. The name itself suggests, right? You're calling back whenever something is happening, you're calling back that function. So let us see an example in code, and let me tell you how we are going to use the same here. All right. It's sort of an anti-pattern. It takes time to get used to, but I hope things will get set up. So let me come to my VS Code, and since we are at day 9, I have wired everything here. We have our usual boilerplate of index.html, and we have our app.js as well. So the first thing which we need to learn is all about callbacks. As I just told you, it's just a function which is accepted as an argument and calls when any sort of interaction is done. All right, I'll just drag it below so that you can see it. Right, cool. So this is how callbacks are functioned. So let us give an example here. Let's say we are having a sort of filtration for numbers. So we can expect an input for only the range between 5 to 100. Any number which is less than 5 or greater than 100 should throw you an error, or in other words, should give you an error. All right. So let's build that function. Normally, how we would do, we'll just build a function called function, and we'll say check range. I'm just keeping it as check range, and it accepts a number here. All right. All we have to do is just say if the number is less than 5, you have to say it as alert. I am sorry for this. I should open and close the curly braces. Alert, your number is less than 5. Right? Else, if number is greater than 100, we will again alert it as your number is greater than 100. Sorry, not 199. Or else we can say alert, your number, I'll put a space here, I'll concatenate with the value whichever I have received from the function is a valid number. Right? This is perfect. This is completely perfect. And as I've already told in functions lecture, this is just defining a function but not calling that function. So what we should do, we should just use check range and pass in a number. So let's say we pass in a number called 40. So if I come here and if I reload it, you could see your number 40 is a valid number. Nothing new here. It's just a bunch of if cases and wrapped it inside a function. But I'm going to use some sort of a different pattern here. What I'm going to use is that let me tell here a number here as well as the function which I'm going to pass inside. And that function is going to take in 2 parameters. One, error parameter. Another one is nothing but a value itself. So whenever you are having an error, the first parameter will get filled. So let me just demonstrate what I'm trying to say here in pictorial ways. Right? Let me give a second. All right. So this particular pattern is something straightforward, but since I am teaching callbacks, I want to make it in a bit more extensive manner. So what I'm going to do is I'll just add a new function as a second parameter to whatever function I'm having now. So let's say we're having the number here, and now the newer function is going to be the callback function. Right? This callback function is going to call with 2 parameters. One, any error messages, and 2 the value. So whenever you are meeting with the error, you will be passing the error value as the first parameter and null for the second parameter, because obviously you're not going to go ahead, right? So what you're going to do is, all you have to do is have the same if conditions, right? You are going to have the same if conditions. I'll put here else if and else here, because that is what we had, right? Again, this is not necessary in your real life. I'm just explaining how it is happening behind the scenes. Instead of just alerting it here, you're going to call this function inside. So instead of having it call back, because there was no space, let me keep it as just CB. CB is the short form of callback. Let me write it as CB. And now let me just call that function inside. How would you call a function? You name that function followed by parenthesis. As I've already told you, this function takes in 2 parameters. One, the error message. Another one is the value itself. If any error is met, what you're going to do is just pass the error message here as a string, and then you'll put the value as null here. Because there is no value, you have an error. Again, the same applies for else if as well. You call the function, you pass the error message, and you make the value as null here. But if everything goes well, you will do the opposite now. You will make the error message as null and put the value, because obviously you have a correct value and the user needs to be informed. So what you're going to do is you call the function and you'll put this parameter as null and put the value here. So again, this is sort of an anti-pattern where you are passing a function itself. Now, when you are calling this particular function, the outer function, so let's say we have the name cal check range. I'll put it as CR here. So now if I'm calling the check range function, obviously I'm going to pass in the number. So let's say we have a 40. The second function is something. So the second parameter is something. Now we need to pass in a function, as I just told you. So I should create a new function directly here. So function followed by, as I just told you, it accepts 2 parameters. So it's going to take the error and it's going to take the value. Here you'll be asking all the if statements. Again, this is so extensive. You need not to do this in your life, in your real life programming. I'm just explaining why it is there. You are having an event, you are having an operation, and when that particular operation is met, this function gets activated automatically. You're not going to call it. It will call by itself. It is going to call automatically, because that is how you are wired it, right? So now what you'll do is you will say, if there is any error, all right, you will just pass in the error. You'll just print that error, or else you'll print the value. So this is going to be our pattern. You have a function, you call the inner accepted function, and that function is going to trigger based on the operation. And this particular pattern, this is called as a design pattern. This particular design pattern is called as callbacks. You call a function based on some operations. So let me just code it as a second version and try to explain once more. You need not have to worry. Yeah, so this was our version 1. I'll just put it as version 1 here. And I'll comment it. I don't want to comment it. I'll just keep it like this. I'll just comment the calling thing alone so that this will stay as intact. I'll have a version 2 here. Now, I'm going to have a check function, just a check function, and this is going to accept a number and then callback function as a second argument, right? And this is going to be just the same as how we have it here. So let me just copy this entirely and let me paste it here. But instead of directly alerting here, I'm going to call the function. That's it. That is literally it. So what I'll do is I'll just call the function as callback function, pass in the error value as well as the original number value. So since this is an error, I need to have the error called as your number is less than 5 and followed by the value of null, because you should not pass a value since it's an error. I'll just copy the same thing and put it here. And now for the second case, it should be greater than 100. All right. And for the last case, I need to make the error as null because that is a valid case. That is a valid number. And then pass in the number itself, whatever number we have accepted here. So this is something which is sort of a reverse pattern but I'll try to teach you that. Don't worry. So the callback function is something we need to create. Either you can create it as a separate function and then put that function inside your parameter, or else just define it directly there. I'm going to use the second option because that will be less confusing. So what I'm going to do is I just call the function called check and put in the number called 42. Now, as you could see, the second parameter is going to be a callback function, and this is where I'm going to generalize a function here. Again, you can name a function outside and then just call that function, put that function here, or you can just directly define it here. I'll give you another tip as well, not worry. So this is going to be a function, and as I told you, it accepts two parameters, correct? One, the error message, another one, the value. So error message is going to be the first argument, and then the value as the second parameter. Now what I'll do is I'll just check if there is no error message because there is a not parameter, or else I'll just say if error message is equal to not null. So I'll just say if not equal to null, right? If the error message is not null, then we have some error, correct? So we'll just put it as alert error message. All right. Else, now you should alert the success message, whatever we had here. Your number plus number. In our case, it was value, right? Whatever value we have received here is presented here. That is why I'm saying as the value. If you're getting confused, let me just keep it as number itself so that you will not be confused. Is a valid number. All right. So this is something called as callback functions. Whenever you are having an operation, right, you pass that function and it automatically calls by itself. You need not call it. But one thing is required to understand your fundamentals. We are not calling the function here. We are just declaring the function. So I'll just cut it, and I'll just cut it correctly. I'll cut it and define it outside. I'll just keep it as callback function, all right? And now I will just put the callback function here. This is exactly what I did on the previous step. Instead of defining it outer, I was just defining it directly inside the invocation of the check function. Anyway, it's fine. If you felt like this is more cleaner, I'll go ahead in this part as well. But generally, programmers will directly code on the invocation part itself, all right? So let me just say what I was trying to express. Callback function is just a function. You are not calling here directly. You are just passing the function as the name alone, because the calling part will be happening inside the original function. You need not worry about the calling part of it. You just have to declare it. So this, my people, is a fundamental concept in JavaScript. This is called as callbacks, and you will see a lot of it in our upcoming topics for today's lecture, which is nothing about events. Again, I'll repeat, you have an outer function. Callback function is something which accepts a function as a parameter, and then the callback function will trigger or invoke or call by itself whenever some sort of operation is met. In our case, we have met 3 operations. One, the number is less than 5. The second operation would be number would be greater than 100. And the third operation would be the default case, which is the valid case, the truthy case. In that purpose, this is your call. You can define however you want. But since this pattern is something which is present in all the packages, I have defined the same. You have 2 parameters always to define the validity of the code. You have an error message and you have the value. If any error is present, you will be alerting that error. If not, you will receive the value, because that is pretty much self-explanatory, right? If the error message is there, you will obviously have no value. And that is how it is programmed previously in any of the code bases. So let's check this now. We have our check method and we pass in the value of 42, and then we have the callback function. So if I now reload it, you could see the number is a valid number. But what if I press 4 here instead of just check? You could see your number is less than 5. It's showing me an error. Got it? I could even make it even more precise by saying error, and I'll just concatenate it with the error message. that could be even more perfect. So now if you reload it, you can see I am having an error called error. Your number is less than 5. What if I have more than 100? So let's say I have a value called 104. I'll press OK here. If I reload it, you could see I'm having an error message called error. Your number is greater than 100. So this, my people, is how callback functions work. You define a function, you pass that function as a parameter, and then you automatically call it based on how you meet with your interactions. All right. I think I was pretty much clear with the concept. If you had any doubts, please feel free to ask it. Vasavi is asking, how did you comment everything? It's pretty simple, Vasavi. All you have to do is just press Control A and Control /. You will comment everything. All right. So that was it. Yeah. I was just commenting a long message. I'm saying that callbacks are something which you won't get it on the first go. Please feel free to ask any doubts. So yeah. My screen is not visible. Is it blurred? Oh, yeah. I don't know why it is happening like this. I'm having the same internet connections. Let me just check it here. I turn off my Wi-Fi if possible. Is it fine now? Let me just reload it once again. I don't know why it's happening like this. Actually, it's the YouTube which calculates all these streaming things. I have all my default settings done. I'm not sure what happened. Yeah, it's live. I have my HT on as well. I'll go to my settings and see. Yes, my HT is on as well. I'm not sure how it happened. Anyways, you have my explanations. I'll just try to show once again if you're not familiar with it. Alright, better than before. Oh, I think that this because of the internet. I think I was connected with Wi-Fi. Now I'm connected with Ethernet. I think that is the reason for it. Good, good. I can see that now it's good. I could see my face a bit more clear now. Awesome, super. So now the next topic is, as I told you before, events. How to observe an event and how to detach from listening it. All right. So that is going to be our next topic. But please do give me a thumbs up if you understood this callbacks. I'll be happy enough to move towards the next topic. Kushal is asking why the condition is not equal to null. The value is null, no, in error message. The value is not null when you are having no value, Kushal. Only if the case was truthy, then only the value will be null. Otherwise, your value will not be null, right? You will be having a string here. So how could it be null? So that is exactly the point here. If your error message has anything other than null, you should stop the program flow here itself. You should not proceed further. Otherwise, only you should alert it as a valid case. So what will happen is that whenever I'm passing a value, so let's say we have a number called 2. Whether 2 is less than 5? Yes, it is. So this function will get called. What is the value of error and value? Error is not a null. It is a string. So what will happen here? This particular thing will get caught. That block will get activated. So if I'm having a number between 5 and 100, let's say we have a number called 30. What will happen here? Is 30 less than 5? No. Is 30 greater than 100? No. That is why the else case is working. You will have this particular function, and now only your error value will be null. So that is why this particular code block will get activated. Got it? Got it, Kushal? Now is my code clear enough? All right. Thank you. Thank you so much, people. Super. So let's go on to the next topic, which is nothing but events. So this exact pattern is going to be happening for all the upcoming topics, my people. You're going to listen to an event. What event means? Any operation which the user performs on the web is called as an event. Let me take this as a chance to show you what are all the events available. There is this famous website called Mozilla Web Documentation. It's called as MDN, where you can literally learn everything. If you had the chance, please go visit it. It's like the library for all the web technologies available as of now, right? So let me just say JavaScript events. You will literally be shocked by how many events it has actually. So I'll just go to event reference. And as you can see, we have now itself, we have a lot of errors here. You could see we have focus. Focus means whenever an input element is clicked, it is called as focus. Whenever you click outside of that input element, it's called as blur. So there are events like that. And you have page height, page show, pop state, you have animation start. Whenever an animation is going in your web browser, that will trigger this event. You have transition, you have reset, you have submit event. This is going to be an important for today's topic. Submit event is going to be taught today. And you have full screen change, full screen error. Whenever you go to YouTube, you press the full screen icon, right? Correct? And that is how full screen change is being triggered. You have cut, you have copy. Just see how many events are there. Copy, you have key down. Whenever you type something, that event is activated. You have aux click. Aux click is something whenever you are having any non-primary buttons, just like how can we say any sorts of buttons which are away from keyboard. Whenever that is pressed, this will get activated. You have normal click. You have double click. Whenever you double click onto something, that has happened. You have mouse down, mouse center. I can literally go out of breath if I'm starting to read these things. So these are all the operations that can be performed onto any website. Whenever a user performs any of these operations, the function which is associated with it will be called automatically. And that, my people, is the pattern of callbacks. All right. So let's just build a small HTML and make it a circle. All right. As you could have already known, it's pretty HTML heavy topic. So I'm not going to perform a lot of concepts over there. So let me just type it in a quick manner. So I'm just going to have a circle here, and the style is going to be width of 100 pixels, height of 100 pixels, background of purple, all right, and then border radius of 50%. What just happened? I think I'm live back, but I don't know what happened. All right, great. I'm back. Yeah, I guess I am back because I don't know what happened. There was some loose contact in my Ethernet, I think. That is why I think it was not working. Super. So let's move ahead. We have our border radius as 50%, and I would like to make it center. So let me make it as body as a style, display. Again, this is not a CSS lecture, so pardon me if I'm going too fast here. Align items, center, justify content, center. So all I'm doing is I'm just bringing the circle to my middle of the document, right? So if you come back and if you just reload it, you could see I'm getting this as center here. But since my body is just small like this, I'll just make it as height 100% or 100 VH, and then I'll make it as flex direction as column. I think that would be correct. If I now reload it, cool. So this is perfect. I have my circle here and I have my H1 tag here. This is exactly what I wanted actually. So now my goal is to have an alert message of whenever I press on this particular circle, that alert message should be popped. All right. That is my goal. So what is the first step? You need to select the element, correct? That is based on yesterday's lecture. So how can we select the element? We have a class name called circle, and that is exactly what we want to do. So let me just go to my app.js and start doing my, let me just create a new file called events.js, and then I'll comment this app.js, and instead I'll create a new file because that will be less confusing for you people. I'll create a new script and then I'll have events.js. Cool. So this is a new file, and I'm ready to select the element. So I'll just have circle is equal to document dot get elements by class name, and this is going to be just circle, right? Since I'm just having one single element, I'll index directly here, as I've already discussed on yesterday's lecture. If you have just one element, the first index is what? 0. So that is going to be my index position. Let me just console log it here so that I am performing it correctly. I'll come here, I'll reload it, and you could see I'm having the div here. Cool. So let me just drag it below so that you can see well. So if I hover here, you could see I am getting the div here. Super. So we have got the element. The next step is to attach a listener. Listener is something which allows you to listen for certain interactions, and it will give you a callback function included. It is batteries included. You have a callback function and you can do whatever you want inside that function. So this is all about listener. A listener is something which comes along with an interaction. It gives you a callback, and that callback function will get automatically called. That is why I showed you on the previous examples. The function will get automatically invoked no matter what, based on the interaction which the user is doing, right? So let me just create a new listener by having, but before that, let me have a callback function here, all right? Callback function. And this is going to be just alerting you have clicked the circle. Yay. All right. This is going to be just a simple callback function. Now I'm going to add an event listener to the element which I have received. All right. That is going to be just circle dot add event listener. Add event listener accepts 2 parameters: the type of the event you want to listen, and then the callback function which you want to pass in. All right. And that is exactly what we have defined here. So let's listen for a click event, right? And then pass in this callback function. That's all. That is really about it. So what you have done is you have add an event listener for this particular element, and whenever you are having a click interaction from the user, this function will automatically get called. Again, I'm saying you should never call it directly. That means irrespective of the event, this function will get called, and you do not want that. Whenever you have this event processing, only then you should trigger that function, because that is common sense, right? At that point only you should trigger that function. So let me save it, and if I come back and reload it, nothing happens, nothing does happen. But when I click it here, really I'm going to click it, I'm not joking. If I click it here, you could see I am getting a pop-up called as you have clicked the circle. Yay. And this, my people, is exactly how you can start making interactive websites. You could literally move the circle as well. You can literally add the styling as well. You can do whatever you want, all right? I'll do some magic here. I'll just make it as transition. Just give me 1 second. Transition of all and 0.3 seconds, all right? Again, this is not a CSS thing. I'm just making some animation smooth. That is what transition is all about, right? So now what I'm going to do is, instead of just alerting it, turns out every callback function for a listener accepts 1 parameter. And that parameter is the event itself. What event has happened, all right? So let me just console log what this event parameter contains. What is the value of that event itself? So if I come and reload it, and if I click it, you have the alert message. That is not a new thing. But if you could see here in console, you have a name called mouse event. Mouse event is something which is happening on the mouse itself, because clicking is happening by what? By a mouse. That's why. So you could see a lot of data is happening here. You can see where I have clicked it, the XY coordinates. If you're a math student, you can understand the website is itself a graph. If you consider this as a graph, and if you consider the lowest, most bottom left point as 0, 0, that is the origin, you can consider this as a Cartesian plane and map the coordinates. So the X coordinates and Y coordinates are shown to us. You have the client and client Y. There is a difference between screen and client. Screen is something which is calculated for the entire web page. Client is something which is calculated on the area which you are seeing. So let's say we have a screen of 10 to 15 pages, right? You have lots of things to scroll. That is called as screen coordinate. But what you are currently seeing is called as client coordinate. So in our case, this entire rectangle is the client coordinate. But that doesn't mean that the website is ending here. You still have to scroll, right? So that is the difference between screen and client coordinate, right? And you all have control key, shift key. This is even more helpful, guys. It says that mouse along with control key or not. It says false. So because I didn't press along with any keys, it says false. But what if I click something with shift? Let's see what happens. I'm pressing now shift, and now I'm going to click it. It says the same alert message, but let's expand it and see here. Shift key is showing now true because I have clicked it along with my shift key. So how cool is that? You can do whatever you want from these techniques. And you have all the other informations as well. You have your offset, you have your movement, you have your type of the thing. And this is something which we want to learn, people, this particular property. As you can see, this is a large object. This is something you have already seen it. This is an object containing all sorts of key value pairs. You have a property name, you have a value name. The target property is something you need to learn in events, because events are something which gives you critical information about what you have just done or what the user have just done. And target is a property which says you which element has been accepting that event. So in our case, the circle was accepting that event because we were clicking it inside the circle. If I click somewhere, I'm literally clicking now. If I click somewhere, the event is not running because I haven't added the event to the global document itself, the entire document itself. I've added the event to only this circle, and that is very crucial. The target property allows you to manage which element has got, or in other words, received that event. So in our case, it's just the div with a class of circle, and you can do whatever things you want. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to increase the width and height of this particular circle whenever I'm clicking it. Or in other words, let's say whenever I am entering the circle. How cool is that? So let us just see two events here, mouse enter and mouse leave. So when I'm entering on that circle, the circle should expand, and when I'm leaving the circle should shrink. All right. So that is going to be our task. All right. So I'm going to add two more events here. Circle dot add event listener, and this is going to be mouse enter, and this is going to be another callback function 1. I'll just have callback function 1. I'm going to have another event listener, add event listener of mouse leave. I think that was the name of it. Yeah, we have the mouse leave, and we just say callback function 2. I didn't still create it, but let me just create it to avoid any errors. Callback function 1 and callback function. Super. So we have done it, and all we have to do is just have a console log mouse entering and mouse leaving. Mouse leaving. All right, just a small function to just check whether if it's working or not. Now, if I'm going to the website and reloading it, just wait and watch. I'm going to enter the circle. It says mouse entering. Now, if I go ahead from that circle, it says mouse leaving, entering, leaving, entering, leaving, entering, leaving. So this is our perfect opportunity to show the expansion and contraction of that particular circle itself. And that is done with the help of some CSS properties. But before that, we need to get the target element. That is why I have shown you before. So let me pass the event parameter here and here as well. Now I'm going to get the circle element itself. Circle element is equal to event dot target. Right? I'm going to do the same thing here as well. But here, now I'm going to, what did I just say? I'm going to expand it, all right? And that is done with the help of scale. There is a property in CSS called scale. You can access your style properties, that is the CSS properties, with the property named as style. So I'll just keep it as console log circle element dot style. All right? I'll just press it, and now let me reload it. Whenever I'm entering here, you could see I have a huge object called CSS style declaration. And here, my people, is where you would have all these CSS properties. You have margin, you have margin top, you have max height, you have max zoom, you have min height, everything. And this is exactly where we are going to manipulate the CSS properties. All right. So this is our style object, and you have all the CSS values here. I'm going to just change the style as what? I'm going to scale up the ball. I mean, in other words, the circle itself. So circle element dot style dot translate. Again, this is a CSS property, translate, which allows you to have a scale, right? Scale of 1.1. That's it. We have a translate value, and then we have, sorry, it's not translate, it's transform. Okay, so we have a circle.style.transform is equal to scale. I'm just scaling it by 1.1. I'm just going to insert a 10% increase in that ball, because 1 is something we have 100. 1.1 means 110%. That's it. I'm just going to increase the ball by 10%. So now if I reload it and if I come here, could you see the change, people? I will make it even more visible here. I'll reload it, and if I come here and change it, could you see the change, people? The ball is getting expanded. Now, all I have to do is just go back to the same position here into 0. Because when I'm leaving the mouse, it should come back to the same position, right? So if I just go here, it's 1.5, 1, 1.5, 1, 1.5, 1. How cool is that? This is done with the help of pure JavaScript and not a single line of CSS. This is just the tip of an iceberg. You can achieve a lot of things by JavaScript events. Another thing which I was about to tell you is form submissions, and that is our third topic. Right? We have listened to an event, and controlling form submissions is going to be our third topic. So let's build a small form. Let's build an email, a password, and let's make a small register form. Right? So if you had any doubts till now, please do ask, guys, and I'll be happy to help you. If this is fun, also give me a thumbs up so that I'll be very encouraged as well. Yeah. So I could see some new people here. We have about 11 viewers. Super. That's great. It's really great. We have saturated to about 11 viewers. And that shows your interest in learning. Thank you for that. I'm waiting for your responses. All right, no issues. So let me just carry over with my next topic, which is form submissions. So you have to learn two things here, people. One, how to control the default event handling and inject our own handling techniques. And two, how can we send the data? All right. So you need to learn some HTML things here, but no worries, I will make that clear as well. Superb. So let us make it as the third topic, which is none other than form submissions. Right? I'll have this. So I'm going to create a new form. And form is something which has an action, and these are all relevant when you are building server side. So that is something we are not going to do for today. This is something which is done on the client side alone. So what I'll do is I'll create a form and I'll be creating two input fields. One email input field, another one a password input field. All right. So I'm just going to have an email, and it's going to take the name. This is very important, people. This is very, very important. Listen here very carefully. You need to have a name property here, and I will tell you why in a few minutes. Right. So I'm just going to have a name called email, and this is going to be taking a placeholder. Placeholder is something where you will have a message before you type something. I'll show you so that you'll understand. Enter your email. Right. I'm going to have a password as well. Sorry for that. All right, great. Password, super. Password. And this is going to take the placeholder as well as enter your password. Right. And I'm going to have a submit button as well. Let me tell you why. Register. This is going to take the value of register. Right. So we have a simple form, nothing fancy or something. If I reload it, you could see I'm getting a form here. Let me just take the chance to have some sort of margin because it's too sticking towards the ball. I do not want that to happen. So I'll take margin top as something around 30 pixels. That would be great. I'll reload it, and yeah, it's having some space here. I really want to play with this circle. It's making me so happy. All right, I don't want to deviate it as well. So you have this message here, right? Enter your email and enter your password. And the moment you type, it will go, that message will go. And that particular thing is called as placeholder. That is why I was telling, I'll tell you later. And this is exactly it. Whenever you start typing, the message will be hidden. But when nothing is typed, you will get that message. And that is somewhat an alternative to labels. Labels is something which is an outer element to that input element. But whereas placeholders is like an embedded label. Again, this is just a design pattern. Designers do design between placeholders and labels. It's their choice. But since we are not going towards any design theories, I'm just having a normal, simple form because the topic is related to form submissions, right? So how would you exactly get these form data? Well, you click something, right? And if you type some password and if you press register, nothing is going to happen, right? But yeah, some form validation is given natively by browsers because since we have given the type as email, it says that please enter an @ symbol because email has an @ symbol, right? So we need to have some @ and if you type it and if you register it, nothing is going to happen. Some sort of gibberish has happened here, right? Nothing is going to happen. People understand this. Whenever you are submitting a form, it will automatically populate it on your URL. And that is called as default event. That is called as default event. You can prevent the default event. So let me take anchor tag as an example. Anchor tag is something which allows you to go to another website. They are just links which allows you to go to another website. So let me take a normal anchor tag here. I'll have a normal anchor tag of link, and this is going to take me to google.com, right? HTTPS of google.com, and this is going to say go to Google, right? Actually, what anchor tag does, all it does is it allows you to go to Google. If I press Google, sorry, the link, it gives me the link towards Google. This is called as a default interaction because you click onto something, it understands that, okay, it's an anchor tag. So I should move, I should redirect towards Google page. But you can stop this operation via JavaScript. You can prevent the default action with the help of JavaScript. And how could we do that? Well, just wait and watch. Firstly, I need to get that anchor tag. So let's say Google link, and I'll just get it from the document.get elements by tag name, right? And this would be just my anchor tag. Since we have just one anchor tag, I'll just index it 0 here. I'm just pretty confident because I'm the one who created the HTML document, right? So I'm pretty confident. The next thing is to just have a click event here. Google link, add event listener of click, and then this should have a function here. Now I'll just put it directly here instead of keeping it in a outer definition. I'll just keep it here. it takes in an event as a parameter. This is where you need to be very, very careful. Here is the place where you can prevent the default operation, and that is done with the help of event.prevent default. It's a method, it's an inbuilt method which allows you to call the default operation. Call in the sense cancel. It's an English word which has another meaning called cancel. It allows you to call off the default action, right? So now if I press and reload it, if I click it here, is it going to Google? It's not going to Google. But if I comment this line number 20 thing and if I reload it, if I click it, okay, I'm sorry for that. If I click it, it goes to Google, all right? So that was an additional tip I want you to give. I want myself to give to you, because form submissions are by default allowing you to add some gibberish like this. I don't want to go deep on this. This is called as query string. It allows you to pass some data to your server. But again, since this is not a server-side architecture lecture, I'm not going to go deeper on that. To avoid this particular thing to be happening, you will use your event.prevent default, right? And that is exactly what we are going to do now. So I'll just take another variable and store my register form here with the help of document.getElement by tag name, and just put form here. And since again I'm having just one form, that is why I'm having form. Again, if you feel like this is pretty much irritating to you, you can have your ID here as register form, and then you can simply ask your get element by ID, because that is something which allows you to return just one element and not a collection of elements. So you can literally do that as well. You can have get element by ID and then pass in the register form. And you need not have this indexing, because again, it's just returning you one single element. All right. So I have stored it inside register form, and this, my people, is going to be the event for submitting. Whenever you press the submit button or the enter button, it considers as a submission of the form. So I'll just have it as register form dot add event listener of submit, and then I'll have a function here, or I'll just have a neat way of demonstrating it. Function register user. This is going to be a callback function. It accepts an event as a parameter, and I'm going to just pass it inside register user. Right? This is going to be a method, and it's going to be passed here. So now what I'll do is, firstly, I will prevent its default operation with the help of event.prevent default. Right? And the next step is to just console log form submitted. That's it. That's it. I plan to go step by step. That is why. So again, I'll just recap what I did. I received the element from HTML. I made a small form here by having email and password and a submit button. And then I went to the JavaScript file, added a new event listener of the event submit, and created a new function called register user. And I have prevented the default action with the help of prevent default. That's it. Cool. I'll just reload it. And now what I'll do is I'll remove these things because this is entirely irritating me. Sorry for that. So what I'll do is I'll just type my email, sandeep@attainu.com. Again, this is not going to save anywhere. This is just a demonstration. I'll keep my password as 1234, and I press register here. You could see it is not populating anywhere here. It is only saying form has submitted. And this allows you to a lot of opportunities like form validation, like submitting, like checking before doing anything. You have all your opportunities here before sending it to your server. All right. By server, I mean sending HTTP requests, and that is something which is some sort of related towards server. So I don't want to, again, get distracted or something. So now how do we get the values of these particular elements? That comes back to why I have stressed the name attribute. So now that you have your form, what would be your target here? We have our submit event. If I press the register button, what would be our target? Is it going to be just the input element, or is it going to be the form itself? Let's check that out. I'll just have my event.target, right? Event.target Now, if I press save and reload, I'll just type some email here like sum@gmail.com and I'll press 1234. And if I press register, wait and watch what is going to happen. Turns out, if I press the submit event, the input element is not alone concentrated, but the entire form itself. How cool is that? You have your entire form getting printed whenever you're having the target property, and that is very convenient for us. So now what we can do is we can simply ask the input elements with respective to their names which was entered inside. So all we can do is we can say event.target.email, and that stands for this input tag. Event.target.password, that stands for this particular input tag. And that is why I told you to have the name property inside your HTML elements. So let's do that. All I have to do is just create var email is equal to event.target.email. That's it. And password as event.target.password. All right. So now if I console log these email and password, and if I reload it, I have a syntax error, not an issue. I'll delete this and I'll type something like sum@gmail.com 1234. Wait and watch. I'll press register. You could now see I'm having both input tags. Thanks to the name attribute. If there was no name attribute, you would not get this. I'll prove that as well. I'll go here. I'll make the emails input tag name as empty. All right. Now, if I reload it, I will come here and say sum@gmail.com and have 1234. And if I press enter, you could see my first value is showing me undefined because it did not know what the name property was. That is why I'm stressing you to have a name property here. So now back to email, reload, sum@gmail.com, 1234, press enter, and we have our values. So this is our third step. Now the fourth step is, that is pretty much easy. All you have to do is just get the value of these input tags. And how would you get that? Simple. So let me just click this and let me store it inside a variable. I don't think I can do that. Let me see here. Store as global variable. Yeah, I can do that. So now all I have to do is just press temp1 dot value. All right. So press value, you could see I'm getting the value of sum@gmail.com. How cool is that? You can get the values of any input tags by getting the value property. You can have any input tags. You can have color, you can have date, you can have email, you can have range, you can have password, you can have text. Anything can be done, but at the end of the day, all you have to do is just put the value property and you can get the value itself. And that is exactly what I'm going to do now. All I'm going to do is just say alert. I don't want to alert the password, but just this is a bad practice, but just to demonstrate you, I'm showing here. Your email and password is, I'll put a concatenation string here, email.value, and I have another string and password.value. I'll drag it here so that you can see. Yeah, respectively, right? That's it. That's literally about it. All I have done is I get the email and password and I'm choosing the value property now. So let me reload it once again. I'll just say sum@gmail.com and 1234. 1234, and if I press register, you could see I'm getting the values of sum@gmail and 1234. When this is useful is that whenever you're sending these data to the server, you will stop the default action and then you will use your own submission techniques. Here is the chance where you will be using all your form validation techniques, like whether if it is a real email or if the password length is less than 10 characters, or if the password is weak, if the password is not, having any symbols, if the password does not contain any uppercase characters. This is where you will be using all those strategies. And that is it for form submissions. Let me take this as a chance to view the live chat. All right. Kushal, Chandan, Aman, Saman, Ramkumar, if you had any doubts, please do ask me. Yeah, I think everything is going good. We have our successful hour of stream. I think today's lecture was a bit smooth, right? I felt it personally, to be very honest. And I think that is because of teaching you the basics of callbacks. Because if you didn't understand the technique of callbacks, you would not know how this was functioning. So again, I'll give you a small recap of whatever we have learned today. Callbacks are something which allows you to have a function and it automatically invokes based on the operation you were having in the other function, in the outer function. So this, in our case, we had 3 operations. If the number was less than 5, the inner function will be invoked automatically. If the outer function was, if the other test cases were evaluated to true, you will be having your positive callbacks function. And that is up to you. This design is entirely up to you. So that was a thing. That was about callbacks. You have events. Events are something which allows you to have performing interactions with the user itself. If the user clicks, or if the user types, or if the user does anything, the event can be captured. The trigger can be captured and released respectively. And that is called as adding a listener. You listen to that event, just like how you have ears. You listen to that event, and when that event occurs, the function automatically triggers, and that is done with the help of a callback strategy, right? So the third thing was to have form submissions. You prevent a default action with the help of prevent default, and then you will have your values. It can be done with the help of the object property itself. That is because you have kept your name property here. And finally, all you have to do is just get the value of any input, and you're good to go. Yeah, that is about it, people. Let me just see the live chat now. Why developer create a form with default event? It is used. I think you know the answer for that, Chandan. If we are building Node.js and HBase applications, we weren't using any client-side API, right? If we were having forms in HBase, the forms should submit it automatically. You cannot do it on the client side. But whereas if you are building a client-side application, you should send an API request, right? So that is why by default forms are wired to submit automatically. In those days, there were no other go but to build web applications like in PHP or in Python. That is why, Chandan. All right, I guess that is it for today. Please do ask me any doubts. I'll be happy to help you. We are nearing to the last day. Tomorrow is the last day where we will build a small to-do list out of all topics we have learned. It includes events, it includes functions, it includes if statements, it includes variables, it includes everything what we have learned till today. A small to-do list, that's it. Yeah. Okay, guys, I think the time is running out. We have a lecture of hour and 7 minutes. Thank you so much for joining. Please come tomorrow for the grand finale of this series where we will build a small application. And I hope you enjoyed the lecture. I have nothing to say. Have a great day. Have a nice lunch. And stay brilliant always. Stay hungry, stay foolish. That is a quote told by Steve Jobs. You should always be modest and still learn every day, right? Bye-bye.